So this is the first chapter of Tao Te Ching, and marked at the end, Lao Tzu, which means what in Chinese? By usage of this term, Lao Tzu is also the name for the person who wrote this thing. Lao Tzu also meaning your father, which is a very impolite way of calling yourself. So I am your father, right? And the story about this was this following thing. When Lao Tzu wrote this paper, he was actually trapped at the door of Shanghai, meaning of North Gate, that went out to the east, to the west, that he decided to leave the Chinese community for good. Then the people over there, knowing that he's a wise man, they stopped him and saying that you have to write down all your wise ideas of the world before we can let you go. So then Lao Tzu said, okay, fine, I'll write something. And this is the first chapter he wrote, which happens to be exactly, I'm serious, is exactly the basic theory of my thesis. What is the meta-language? Okay? This says there is no constant grammar or rules. If there were any rule, they are all dynamic rules. There were no constant names or vocabulary, 非常 meaning that unless they were all dynamically defined words or names. So when in the beginning of the universe, there were no names, no vocabulary. And once you give anything a name, that became the mother of all things in the world. When there was absolutely nothing, you use it to understand the mystery, the possibilities. When there were something, meaning some words or some grammar, you use it to understand the details, to precisely define a phenomenon. So these two things, the rules and the vocabulary, they came from the same thing with a different name. They're both called abstraction. Abstraction on top of abstraction is the mystery of all things. It's a door to all mysteries. So the thesis I wrote actually was about a meta-language defining the mission statement to explore the whole universe. Actually, it was actually applied by NASA to automatically identify the possible itineraries of how we can send space shuttles, actually spacecrafts, to different kind of locations. Actually, it was considered a completely impossible task, but I finished it within a month. So now the story is, when I wrote my thesis, everybody in the department says, this is impossible. Nobody knows what the hell they're talking about. This is wrong. So instead of, obviously then eventually they agreed with me and NASA applied it, Draper Lab applied it, and it proved to be a useful thing. So then, obviously then we graduated. So still, people in my graduate thesis, they said, Ben, well, there's big problems when you graduate. Because if you were to define something that has no boundary, that you can solve any problem, then it is not a thesis. So you have to actually define a boundary. But so far, nobody knows what this cannot do. So they invited many super computer scientists, including the guy who invented symbolic computing, Joe Moses, who was the provost of MIT, then sitting there. So then they said, well, Ben cannot graduate because his thesis applies to anything on Earth. Therefore, he doesn't have the bounded definition of what he can or cannot accomplish, so we cannot let him go. So Moses said the following, which is exactly what this is. He said, well, Ben's thesis was about a formal language. Anything that can be linguistically defined, stated as a problem, he can solve. The problem that language cannot talk about, he cannot solve. Therefore, the boundary of his thesis is the things that all languages can talk about. Things cannot be talked about, it's not under his scope. So what? So that's a boundary. So fine, we graduate. So this is totally an academic joke, and it's until today it's being talked about at MIT. That's why somebody had checked it out. So I made sure I wrote in Chinese with no translation, so people will be curious about what I wrote. That's my graphic. That's my function. Okay? Anyway, I'm just actually telling a joke. But this is actually a real joke. Because you can see, you can go to MIT and check this out. This is actually in it. It was actually very carefully. You can see, this is actually not totally black. I changed the color so that you cannot see it from flipping through the thing. So you can actually have to open it to see this thing. So it's totally a surprise when it opens everything. But anyway, I want to come back to why am I telling you this story? The point is, when you want to write a document, as I said, the emotion element, the curiosity element is important because you are dealing with a natural language. Therefore, you do not have all precise facts. The way you use graphics, the choice of your wording is going to affect people's willingness in a strange, mystical way to be willing to read. And you have to invent the way, invent the personalities, invent the storyline, getting people to start reading the document. As you said clearly, and I do want facts. I do not want you to give me a cartoon script. Absolutely no. Okay? I want facts. But I want you to actually incorporate facts along with some other emotional elements that can lead people be interested and curious about wanting to read this extremely abstract and potentially totally technical, even potentially boring document. But it is your job to lead them through every single page. So Hester, did that answer your question? Okay? Yes, it is possible to have something totally no one else in the world would even bother to read it. But believe me, IIR, page by page, by number of readers, should be the most valuable kind of document. Okay? Usually $100,000 to read even one person reading one document for the whole company. The company sometimes pays $100,000 just to write the one report and present it to one decision maker to read 50 or 100 pages just for that one thing. Very possible. But then the point is that that person you want reading it needs to be engaged. And there are many, many others. Okay, let's take a 5 minutes break. Then we'll start trying to go through a short exercise, a 30-second story about who I am. Okay?